Good afternoon, and welcome to the next to the last Lunchtime Expeditions program of 2018. I'm Chuck Preston. I'm senior curator here, of course, at the Draper Natural History Museum, and on behalf of the Draper and the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, let me welcome you here today. So glad to see you today. Before I forget, please put your electronic devices either turn off or on vibrate, so we won't have those pings and dings throughout the presentation. Thank you. So rude, and distracting, and distracting. You can't have that. We don't want her distracted today. That's right. Today we're continuing really in the broad series of talks in 2018 associated with the Monarch of the Skies exhibition. I hope you've had an opportunity to view that exhibition, and if so, you know that it's interdisciplinary. There's a lot of ecology and natural history, but also anthropology, archaeology, rock art in there, in really tying together people and nature, because that's really the way it is. We'd have to force it apart otherwise. I am especially pleased today to introduce one of our own, co-curator of the exhibition, as a matter of fact, and she's well known to many of you as our curatorial assistant here in the Draper Natural History Museum and coordinator of our programs for the past 7 years. Prior to this appointment, she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology and art history from UCLA. While she was an undergraduate, she worked with Dr. Thomas Wake there in the zooarchaeology lab, investigating ancient diet of people living in the Panamanian coast. So she's international today. She's an active member of the Wyoming Association of Professional Archaeologists, and currently, and many of you know her, is president of the Absaroka chapter of the Wyoming Archaeology Society. She's also on the board of the Park County Historic Preservation Commission and the Montana Archaeologists Education Board. She's worked on several projects with HistoriCorps in both Colorado and Wyoming. During the last several years, she has participated in our long-term research project, field work and literature review, and other work on the Golden Eagle project here in the Bighorn Basin. She has been conducting field work and other examinations of spatial relationships among eagle-related rock art, historic eagle nest sites, and Native American trap sites. And so today she's going to present a little bit of that, and I've only seen part of that so far, so I'm really excited to see what she's come up with, the most recent field work. Please welcome Bonnie Lawrence Smith.
Well, I'm going to go home now. You can't top that. So I want to thank you guys all for coming today. This is something that we've been working on for quite a while. And so, yeah, again, like Chuck said, I studied anthropology and art history at UCLA, so it made absolute sense for me to come back to Wyoming and work for a wildlife biologist, right? Not really. So I'm hoping that you all have your rotten tomatoes, like, somewhere outside of the room. Don't throw them at me. So let's get one thing straight. Archaeology has nothing to do with dinosaurs. We don't dig dinosaurs. I have friends that still send me articles on dinosaurs, and I'm like, I don't dig dinosaurs. So what I am interested in, though, is petroglyphs, rock art, and pictographs. And what the difference is here, petroglyphs take away. They're carved. They're incised into the rock surface. Whereas pictographs it's something added to, a pigment to the rock surface. And we find rock art all over the planet, basically, in Spain, in France, Australia, which has some really interesting rock art. And then we have a wonderful mixture of different forms of art right here in the United States. So yeah, I thought this was funny too. Posting cats and food for 33,000 years. We just can't stop ourselves. It's nothing new. And so my interest lies, though, in the rock art of the Bighorn Basin, which is where I grew up. I grew up around here. And so we have rock art here. Oh yeah, we have tons of rock art here. And so this is just an example of my field of study. So it is the entire Bighorn Basin, which also does include parts of Du Bois. And within that realm, we have a ton of rock art sites. And the ones that you're looking at right now, these are just the ones that have infrastructure. There's sites that are not on this map because they're not protected. But what I did notice is that our region tends to be really, really heavy on raptor figures, birds of prey, meat eaters, cannibirds. And some examples, these are some of the examples of Thunderbirds from Wyoming. Most are from Mary Hendry's book, Wyoming Rock Art. And, but the other one in the upper right-hand corner is from Larry Lohendorf and Julie Francis's book, Ancient Visions. And that one is over by Du Bois. So I'm going to look at 3 sites. We'll go through 3 sites, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So Legend Rock is located over between Meeteetse and Thermopolis, and it's one of my favorite sites, period. And the reason that is because it has the gambit. It has thousands of years of people coming through the area and leaving their mark, telling us what their spiritual beliefs are, telling us what their hopes are, what they're hoping to hunt. This is like the messages from the past. And so we have like these amazing supernatural creatures coming out of rocks, really weird guys with horn hats, and even wildlife. And I don't know how many of you got to see the Invisible Boundaries exhibit. This is one of the images that we actually used for the elk that have migrated through this region for thousands of years. So when we talk about Legend Rock and the petroglyph and the Thunderbird figures, this is probably the one that comes to mind. And just ignore the guys above there because they're super happy to be here today too. But here's a second Thunderbird eagle figure that's at the site. I know you can't really see it, but here you go. And a third. There's at least one more that I know of. So the probability is high as we start examining more of the site that, so there's 3 sites. 2 of them belong to the Archaeological Conservancy and 1 to National Parks. National Parks is the one that you guys can go to and walk around. The other 2 belong to other folks. So don't worry, I didn't go chalk on these sites. Technology has come a really long way since doing that, and so I just went to like Walmart and bought a white Sharpie. So in 1987, a technician's report by Nancy Jo Arthur, which was commissioned by the Buffalo Bill Historical Center, she comments on the proximity of a nest next to one of the Eagle Thunderbird petroglyphs that they were latex casting. And so, yeah, the nest is still in use, as is an eagle nest higher on the cliff just to the right of this panel. Now, that's what is really interesting to me, just to the right of this Golden Eagle Thunderbird panel. And there it is. It's still there. So the second site is 48BH350. I'm using the Smithsonian number because it's not a protected site, but it is a site of interest to me because it has 7 eagle traps in a cluster. We have several zoomorphs, anthropomorphs, and bird tracks. Again, that bird theme. And here you go. And the last site I'm going to talk about is Ring Lake. Now, Ring Lake is over by Du Bois, Wyoming. It's about, about 5 miles out of Du Bois. And that's basically where the Dinwiddie sites are, and that's where that tradition was named after. And it is pecked petroglyphs, really unique in their look, the way they look. And so Ring Lake is, like I said, approximately 5 miles outside of Du Bois, Wyoming. I've got the area that we were looking at highlighted in pink, again, using that modern technology of a highlighter. And so this is Ring Lake, beautiful site. This is my car clear down here, so that tells you about the climbing that you have to do to even get to the rock art. And again, we have those zoomorphic bird representations. The Dinwiddie tradition, figures in transformation is kind of how I like to view them. The upper left is a Thunderbird with hail emanating from its wings, and the lower right is a reproduction of a latex cast petroglyph from the same site called Birdman, and that resides here. That was some of the objects that resulted from that 1987 project. And there you can see it better. I used my white Sharpie again. But what is interesting, in 1975, a graduate student was doing a study of the rock art here, and he found 16 Thunderbirds on the west side of the lake and 9 on the east. And looking at the occurrence of Thunderbirds in relation to the other animals, it's pretty significant. I mean, seriously, you're looking at like wolf, dog, 0, sheep, 5, but 16 and 9. So statistically significant. And here are some more of those Thunderbird representation, those images from over by Du Bois, courtesy of Leslie Patton, one of our volunteers. Oh, and look. And we saw the guy too. It was an active eagle nest. So it seems clear that they're representing eagles, but why? You know, I should mention that the crow word for golden eagle is the same crow word for thunderbird, dakagage. And this reverence for golden eagles goes back thousands of years. It's nothing new. Even in cultures that predate human migration to North America that we know of. There was an article released in 2010 called the Natufian Ritual Event, and it's about a pre-Neolithic cave burial in Levant, or what is now known as Israel. And that's the exterior of the cave. Here's the inside, the excavation. Not a bad day at work. Seriously, look at that view. You're inside the cave, it's nice and cool. You can look out on nature. You're outside. But this is a artist rendering of what the burial looked like. And what is interesting is that right here, we have a golden eagle wing. Right there, golden eagle wing bone. Don't even think about that articulated human foot. I don't know how that got in there. And so our respect for golden eagles is ancient and charged with meaning. So these talons of eagles, they've been used for adornment for thousands of years. These talons were found in a cave in Krapina, Croatia. They date to 130,000 years ago. These 8 talons were, they believe, at one time tied into a necklace. So we were even then trying to associate ourselves with that power. And so these are just a few of the groups, I'm sure you recognize some of the names, that have come through our area. So we've got, you know, the Shoshone sheep eaters, which I'm sure you've heard of, the Crow folks who are still here, Northern Arapaho, Cheyenne, Comanche, Kiowa, Pawnee, and Ute have all been in our Bighorn Basin at one time or another. So back to the states. So eagles figure prominently in nearly every North American mythology as well. And I mean, for example, this effigy was found in Florida. And of course, you guys all recognize the totem poles of the Pacific Northwest, because they are powerful creatures. Who would not want that power? So in the book, Stories of the Eastern Shoshone, it says, you know, you can read it, but basically, that thunder is controlled by the Thunderbird, Tupisi-Huchu, brown bird. Not brown bird with white head, so that's a bald eagle, okay? So we know it's a brown bird. And so, most likely, golden eagle. And eating eagle meat was actually forbidden by several taboos, and they believed that if you did eat it, you would turn into a monster. So, just a little levity, sorry. And so golden eagles were also called war eagles, and they had strong associations with warriors and battle, and they were depicted frequently in Plains Indian ritual iconography due to the medicinal and spiritual significance of this animal. Now, when I say medicine, I'm not talking about Advil. We all know that, right? I hope. And so the feathers would be plucked in one of these pits. So a brave soul, and I do mean brave, because if you've been in the field with Chuck and been around those, no, it's a male activity. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm smart. And so it's like, but these traps, these young men would get into these traps and cover it with brush and then put bait on the end of a stick and wait for a golden eagle to come in and grab it, and then they would grab it, pluck 3 feathers, and release it. So this one is actually a golden eagle trapping pit, that is up on the South Fork that a kind soul took me to. And it's funny because it's like there's a active golden eagle nest about a quarter of a mile up. So what were these feathers used for? You know, what objects were they used in? Primarily beautiful ceremonial objects. They're important. So, and all of these objects that I am going to show you are right here in our Plains Indian Museum collection, and you can go look at them on exhibit. They're beautiful. So we have feathered bonnets. We have this wonderful medicine hat, which is more than just a few feathers. Hair ornaments. And feathered shields. And as I'm sure you've seen some of the shield-bearing warrior rock art, you have these great big shields with like the little tiny head sticking up and some feet, and it's just the rest of its shield. Well, they've actually found those shields in the dry caves of Utah, and they were that big. Now, with the invention, or the introduction, I should say, of the horse, you don't need shields that big anymore. And so shields get smaller, but they maintain that significance. And so if you notice these I don't want to say decorated, because that takes away from the significance of what they really are, but they're empowered with the power of these animals, of the bear, of the eagle. And it's like a lot of times it had to do with different families and clans. And so now to the biology of golden eagles. And what does it matter if they're nesting near a site now, right? So a gyrfalcon nest site, there was a study done in Greenland, and they wanted to figure out how long these gyrfalcons had been using the same nest continually. And so here are some of the radiocarbon dates, and again, they were using some of that really cool technology like I use. They used some wiring conduit and got like core samples. But this is the part that's interesting to me. One of the sites came back at 2,480 years they had been using that nest continually. I mean, think about that. That means that there is the possibility that when you go out to Legend Rock and you see those golden eagles out there, they could be direct descendants of the original population that people were leaving messages to. So what do I do? What do I know, right? I'm just some chick up here talking at you. So part of what we do here at the Draper is, like Chuck said, we do this research. We go out in the field every year. And Melissa Hill and I have been lucky enough to go out with Chuck in the past. And it's like, that's Melissa drawing blood from a 4-week-old baby eagle. And one of the big questions we get a lot of the time is like, well, you know, it's like the parents, didn't they attack you? And you're like, no. They just kind of wander off and watch you while you're molesting their children. So yeah, like I said, in 2015, we got to participate in the spring and summer research, and we spent months out in the Bighorn Basin. It was amazing. And guess what? See that? Not everybody gets to feed a golden eagle. That's one of the perks of the job. And so because of that, and working with Chuck as many years as we have, going out in the field with Chuck, you learn pretty quickly what's what. You learn to identify, you know, he teaches you this is how you can tell there's a golden eagle nest over there, or oh, there's just ravens in there, or whatever. He teaches you, so you learn what you're looking at is either a golden eagle nest or something else. And so guess what? We have a really large golden eagle population. These are nesting sites that Chuck, I mean, this is a 2012 map generated by some folks here. And that's how many they had then. And it's like they've identified even more nests now. And this includes alternate nests as well. And so it's interesting to note that not only do golden eagles mate for life, they use the same nests year after year. And that's one of the things that Chuck has found. And generally they have 1 or 2 alternate nests, but it's always kind of within the same vicinity. And so, yeah, just back to that, thinking that it's like those golden eagles that you see out at Legend Rock, they could be descendants of that original eagle that they were pecking that message to. So in social sciences, they say that space versus place. So everything is space until something happens there. Once something happens, it becomes place. And so Legend Rock and these other rock art sites, they're place. They're no longer just a space on the landscape. They are a place where something has happened, an important event, spiritual place, important to a lot of Native people. And so it's clear that the eagles they were important messengers, powerful medicine, and that the shamans or holy men would climb these cliffs and leave messages. It's not surprising, because I mean, how many of you are in awe of them today? And yeah, they're beautiful, they're amazing. 7-foot wingspan. That's taller than I am. And so one of the issues that we try to deal with, and one of the issues we actually talk about in the exhibit that Chuck was telling you about, is stewardship. So one of the main issues we have in Wyoming with rock art is bullet holes. And not necessarily intentional, but a lot of times people will be sighting in their firearms on rock art. And so in answer to that and some of the other conservation issues that we've been facing, collision with man-made structures, electrocution, poisoning, we got together and we put together this cute little exhibit called Monarch of the Sky. It's pretty awesome. And it was created using decades of research from the Western United States by lots of scientists in the field that collaborated with us. And we were sure to include the native voice to interpret the ancient meaning of golden eagles to the first people. Specific objects were selected to support the story. I mean, look at that. These are two really awesome symbols of achievement. We have the feathered bonnet, and I mean, look at all those golden eagle feathers. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't just like something you picked up at Walmart. That was an honor to have that. And then you juxtapose that with the graduation mortarboard with the single golden eagle feather. Still a very high form of achievement. And so it now resides in the permanent home outside the Draper lab. And if you haven't been down to see it yet, you should go. Absolutely, it's beautiful. And who are we without our team, right? And I just want to say a special thanks to a lot of the people who have helped me along this project since it started in 2013. And so I'm going to leave you with a little humor. That's what they're doing, right? And this goes back to that dinosaur joke. You owe me an anthropology. Thank you.